Now, virologist with the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, he's actually the head, Professor Ampofo, has revealed that the testing laboratories for COVID-19 have carried out close to 30,000 more tests since the president addressed the nation. Now, President Akufo-Addo, in his last address on Sunday, said 68,000 tests have been conducted so far and results of some 18,000 expected this week. Now, at the Information Ministry's press briefing today, Professor Ampofo justified the test figures, adding the laboratories have the testing equipment to carry out multiple tests. His comments follow the controversy over the number of individuals tested and as compared to the duplicates so far.
Worked tirelessly to give the results that the president described on Sunday. Now, if you have been to Noguchi recently, you'd have seen the white building at the entrance of our institute. This building actually facilitated the process. It has enabled us to test thousands of samples within the recent couple of weeks. How have we done this testing? As you have heard, you cannot see a virus. So to test for the virus, we actually extract the inner component of the virus, and it's called ribonucleic acid. Now, how do we collect the sample, or what kind of sample do we use for the testing? Because this is a respiratory virus, we look for the virus in the respiratory pathway, okay? So we take swabs from the nose, swabs from the throat. We also take sputum, which you bring out from the throat. And then we also have another method where we introduce salt water into your nose and you blow it out, and it's called nasal lavage. So these are the 4 types of specimens or samples that we have used in Ghana to test for the coronavirus. When these samples arrive at the lab, whether it is Kumasi or Noguchi or the VSD or the Public Health Reference Lab, we go through a process to enable us to utilize the reagents or the chemicals in a very efficient manner. We simply pool the samples. What is pooling? Pooling just means that if you have 1,000 samples, you put them in pools of 10, and therefore you test at a time 100 pools. So in a short time, instead of testing only 1,000 samples, you actually test 10,000 samples. This simple arithmetic is what some people cannot do. If you want to understand how we are able to utilize our existing facilities using a method which was derived in 1945 for screening samples right from the blood bank, this is a very efficient way of proceeding. The other thing that we've done is that to ensure that we're actually not diluting the sample when we mix 10 of them together, we simply took one positive sample, which was at the limit of the detection of our system, and diluted it with 9 other samples, which were negative. Therefore, we could determine that if we pool 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 together, we are still able to detect the first sample, which is at the limit of the positive detection. Again, with our partners, we have the latest kind of equipment to be able to do this direct detection. So, when we started, we realized that as the numbers grew, we were actually pooling 5 samples, and then we changed to a pooling of 10 samples. And this simple protocol was followed both by colleagues in KCCR, and of course, it's now adopted by our colleagues here at PHR and VSD. So in a nutshell, you can understand that it is not impossible to have tested 68,000 samples, as His Excellency the President reported when he addressed all of us. Actually, since he addressed us, we have actually tested close to 30,000 samples, again, using the same method, because each time we do 10,000 samples, it's actually, a multiplication of a simple initial number. So please do not be surprised if in the next couple of days you hear that we have tested 100,000 samples in Ghana. It's just a matter of, multiplication and addition. Now, how efficient is this process? We don't just test, Each test that is done follows a quality control step as indicated by the manufacturer. We have actually used 4 different PCR test kits in Ghana. 2 of them provided by the World Health Organization and the Africa Centers for Disease Control, and also the West African Health Organization. So you can understand that the test kits that we have used are according to international standards and verified by these organizations to ensure that the process we are doing is in line with the applicable procedures. Also, we have established a common quality assurance program where we have exchanged samples between KCCR and Noguchi to ensure that samples that we say are positive at Noguchi are also checked by KCCR. And we have also done the same thing for samples from KCCR. Furthermore, the WHO has established an external quality assurance program, and we will be taking part in this external quality assurance program. I understand that the Africa CDC is also starting such a program for us in Ghana. You've also heard about rapid diagnostic tests. And the policy that the FDA, the Food and Drug Authority, has adopted is that all such rapid diagnostic test kits have to be evaluated and assessed for their ability to pick up a true positive, which we call sensitivity, and the ability to rule out a true negative, which is called specificity. So this process is currently ongoing, and we have established a panel of blood samples that are truly positive and that are truly negative. We are in the process of reporting back to the FDA on which kits, therefore, are most sensitive and most specific and therefore suitable for use in Ghana. This will then enable us to do more testing, but the results will be in combination with what we call the PCR, so that we can accurately describe as somebody having been exposed, accurately describe somebody as having been infected, and accurately describe somebody as having been previously exposed. It's very important to understand the distinction between these categories, or else people will think that they have the virus, whereas they have just been exposed and they have actually recovered. I think that this is a sufficient explanation of everything that we are doing so far on testing. If there are any specific questions or issues, I think that it will be brought to attention and we will once again come here. But I must thank all my colleagues in the background who you do not see. They have worked tirelessly day and night in triple shifts, making sure that we are able to provide the testing to support the COVID response. Thank you very much.
Prof, you're touching my podium. You have to use a sanitizer. Professor William Ampofo is the head of virology at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research. They are coordinating all the tests across the country. Prof will join us later to help us understand a few questions. So we have admitted here on this platform and on several other platforms that out of this about, is it 80,000 currently getting to 100,000 in the medium term tests, there are some tests that have been done more than once. Why? Because, for example, if you look at our recovery rate, 99 people, what it means is that those persons were tested 3 times, the first positive test and 2 negatives, at least. If you look at those who were in mandatory quarantine, they were tested at least twice. That is 1,030, and then they were tested about twice. So you will find some tests that have been run more than once. But Ghana is reporting that we have done about 80,000 tests. We have also admitted, nobody has hidden it, that some of these tests have been done more than once. The question is, how many of these 80,000 tests have been done more than once? And does that take away from the view of Ghana's test numbers? If, for example, by the time you work that mathematics for us, it is 0.5% of the tests that are repeat tests. Does that mean that the 99.5% of the tests, singular tests, which showcase Ghana's test per million or Ghana's test capacity should be thrown away, should be discounted, that therefore the numbers are duplicated? Prof, we'll need you to help us later. it fits into the question of whether we are reporting number of tests or people tested. Because the big question is put out there, are you reporting number of tests or people tested? But the real question is, what we have admitted about the double test, what percentage of the total test is it? And does that negate the essence of the entire testing exercise? So, Prof, you have to help us to understand all of this. I want to quickly move to case management and case count before I come to this model. Because Dr. Nsiah, we are all scared. You say 3 million people and 15,000 will die. We are all scared. So we'll come to you to help us with the details. But I want to move to case management. From the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kuma Abuaji.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I'm using your sanitizer. Good morning. We'll just give you a brief of where we are as of this morning. As you know, we have the cases categorized into general surveillance, travelers, enhanced surveillance, and then the total. Under the general surveillance, as at the 20th of April, which we're reporting, we have 401 cases that are reported positive. We still have the 115 travelers who were quarantined and tested at 115. Through the enhanced contact tracing, in the last 3 weeks, we have about 638 positives, bringing the number to 1,154 cases as at today. Out of this, we have had about 120 of them having recovered, a change from the 99 in the last reporting. Of these recoveries, 82 have come from the Ghana East. UGMC has reported 17 recoveries. RAGE has 3 people have recovered. The 37 military hospitals have recorded 4 recoveries. Temajana Hospital 1, Ashanti region has 6. WA has, the index case has 1, and Tamale has 6 cases reported. Of those who are well and responding to treatment, including those who are asymptomatic, that comes about 1,021, accounting for about 88.5% of our cases are well, no symptoms, and those who have mild symptoms are responding to treatment. We have 4 people currently in critical or moderately severe condition. Only 1 is on ventilator, and these are in Ghana East and UGMC as we speak this morning. So, in a nutshell, this is what we can share with you. A significant number of the people are currently in isolation. Thank you very much.
Dr. Patrick Abuaji, thank you for that update. So now we have 120 recoveries. Doc, did I hear you correctly? 120 recoveries? Doc, 120 recoveries. 120 recoveries. Okay, and making our way through gradually. We'll also invite you later to respond to questions that our colleagues may have. Shortly, I'm going to invite Dr. Nsiah to come and explain this model of 3 million people to be infected, 15,000 to die, to come and explain this model. Before then, it is my understanding that chief executives of state-owned enterprises, or is it the state-owned enterprises themselves? All entities. Is it the entities or the chief executives?
The chief executives.
The chief executives of the state-owned entities, those that come under SIGA, have also come together with a contribution which they want to make available to the COVID-19 Relief Fund. Honorable Deputy Minister for Information, please join me and let me invite the representatives of the chief executives to join us and to make that presentation. May I quickly mention that the COVID-19 Relief Fund, that money does not come to central government to utilize. I think it's an important clarification we have to make. That money Please come to the front here. Please come to the front of the podium, yes. That money does not come to central government to utilize. It goes to the fund which is administered by a board of trustees. A board of trustees led by the former Chief Justice, Madam Sophia Akufo, and they are going to administer that fund in accordance with the law that was passed by Parliament. Social distancing observed. So in accordance with the law that was passed by Parliament, the trustees of the COVID-19 Relief Fund are the ones who will apply these funds in accordance with the law that was passed. It does not come to central government. So please let us take note accordingly. There have been those who have donated items in kind that have gone to various ministries and departments that are handling parts of it, like food items, etc. And we are grateful to them as well. So, Honorable Pius. Thank you. Very quickly, Mr. Ajman, very quickly.
All right, thank you. We're doing this on behalf of the CEOs and deputy CEOs of all the state entities. And this is an initial contribution. We still have a way to go, and under what we call the COVID support project for the state CEOs and deputies, we will still be making more contributions. And also, this is not coming from the institutions. These are the individual contributions of the CEOs and the deputy CEOs. Thank you very much.
So CEOs and deputies and SIGA for coordinating, we are very grateful. Dr. Nsiasare, please join us and explain this model to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Yes, yesterday I was at JoyTV and I gave a hypothesis, which is a hypothesis that WHO put out, which is based on population of the country. And that's the hypothesis I gave, that if Ghana stayed without doing anything at all, that's what will happen to us as a country. That's the 10% of the population having being infected and 20% of them getting sick and about 5% of them getting very seriously ill. But I said, and I'm sure they should have quoted me on that, that is not the case in Africa. In fact, based on the facts and the data that we have realized that our actual figures are far below what WHO has quoted. And it's because when we saw the WHO hypothesis, we were a bit scared. So we put a lot of things in place, which the Honorable Minister have mentioned, especially the preventive etiquette, which has become a new normal in this country, social distancing, ban on social gatherings, and also ban on limitation on or restriction on coming into the country, because we realize that most of the problems that we have in this country were imported. Get the data that we are using now.
And so that's the Director General, former Director General of the Ghana Health Service, now advisor on health to the President. And let's go to the phone lines now and speak to a virologist with the KCCR, Dr. Michael Owusu. Doc, apologies for keeping you on the line, but we've been told by the head of virology for Noguchi that since the President spoke to us Sunday, they have conducted 30,000 more tests. I don't know how many tests KCCR has done.
So KCCR, on the average, we do from about from 1,000 to up to about 2,500 tests per day on the average. If all things go well, this is what we do. So we have done quite a number. It means if you calculate from the time the announcement was made up to now, you can already make the computation.
So we can look at between 40 to 45,000.
Possibly, but this doesn't follow a linear scale because a lot of other conditions come to play. And then as and when things are fine, we are able to generate these numbers to our capacity.
There's been a little bit of a controversy on how the numbers are reported and the actual counts. Yesterday, we were made to understand that some of the cases are actually tested a number of times, and of course, that is to be expected. For instance, for those who have been cleared as recovered, you need to do a double testing to prove negative twice. Then you can be cleared as having recovered. But we have also been told that the reported cases by the Ghana Health Service is actually the case of individual people, the human beings that have been tested. So if the Ghana Health Service, for instance, says that we have tested 68,000 people, this is a reflection of 68,000 tests. This is a reflection of 68,000 people haven't been tested, minus the repeated tests. Is that what is happening in your case as well?
So what we do is that every morning the director reports the first-time cases, I mean all individual cases, and the number of those people who are positive out of all the individual cases. That is in one block, one Excel sheet. The second Excel sheet also reports the total number of repeat tests which are done on these individuals. So these are reported separately, and this is sent to the Director of Public Health almost on a daily basis. So we don't bundle the duplicates and repeat tests together. We separate this and the report together. So the full data for the Gucci, for KCCR, for CSIR, and for Kolubi, everything is with the Public Health Division. And this data has been clearly disaggregated. So I believe that the information they have, they are able to give the exact numbers of repeat tests and the exact numbers of first-line tests. But for us, anytime we report, we separate this and then we send this to the national.
Very well. Now, let's look at the issue of the flattening of the curve. 2 days ago, when I spoke to the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaje, he said the curve was flattening. I want us to listen to him first, and then we'll come back to talk about what it means to have the curve flatten.
I believe so. I'm sure you have seen what we have played on our website, and when we do the daily case, as you can see, it's not just a trigger. So it's making progress. We only need to intensify. Whilst we intensify, we need to ensure that more public health measures are put in place to not only get flattening but also start bringing it down. Despite the partial lifting of the lockdown, all the public health measures are going to take place probably at a higher, at a more intensified way.
Doc, I don't know what you make of what he said. What is your understanding when we are told in medical terms that the curve is flattening in a pandemic? And in this case, what are we looking at? What are the indicators? So ideally, there are about three curves you want to look at. The first curve is a curve for infectivity rate, or the number of positive cases you are getting. Yeah.
The second curve is the death rate, the number of people who are dying. And the third curve will be the rate of hospitalization, the number of people who are being hospitalized. So these three curves will have to be looked at. You could have an. So we are looking at positivity, we are looking at death, and then we are looking at the hospitalized case. That's those in critical condition. Exactly. Okay. So in most times, in most countries, you realize that when the hospital cases begin to peak, this goes alongside with the number of people who are being infected. And this correlates with the death rate that also goes up. But you get to a point where the number of hospitalization begins to level off. It means that the rate at which people go to hospital will remain constant. And this has a direct relationship with the death rate. The number of people who are dying will also begin to fall, and the infectivity rate will also begin to level up. So all these three curves will have to be looked at. So you may not want to look at just the infections occurring and then be talking about leveling up, but you want to also look at the number of people who are reporting with this COVID disease coming to the hospitals, and you must weigh this against the number of deaths. So if the death rate remains constant over a period of time, 14 to 28 days, still remaining constant, your hospitalization is beginning to fall down. People are not rushing to hospitals with this COVID signs and disease. Then you can confidently say that the curve is leveling off. But if you are not able to determine that, then it will be too early to begin to make projections about leveling off of the curve. So these three curves at any point in time must show on the graph, so you'll be able to know how well you are doing with the interventions you are putting in place.
Which of these three would you say is the strongest indicator? So that in our case, for instance, over the period, we've seen that not many have died relatively. We've also seen that we've not had many of the critical cases. As of yesterday, the president said we had 4 in critical condition. But you look at the infection rate, the positivity, it keeps going up. Right now, today, the update is that we have 1,154 cases. And so which of these indicators would you say is the strongest and should inform the conclusion that is made?
I think that the hospitalization, the death rate is what should be strongest in doing this. As for the infection, they will keep growing as and when we have multiple contacts. But then the number of people who will be hospitalized seems to correlate with the number of deaths that will occur. So for now, I think the interest more must be in how many people are reporting to hospitals and how many are trooping. When the number of hospital-reported cases begins to increase and your bed capacity is stretched to its limit, then that will correlate with the number of deaths that will be occurring. So these two curves, for me, are most important. You could have a rise in infection, but if the rise in infections does not correlate with people becoming hospitalized, well, you could be doing well, because that may not be a danger sign. But if the rise in infections correlates with the number of people trooping to hospitals, and that also stretches the health facility, and that results in people beginning to die, then these two curves of hospitalization and death rate, once they begin to shoot up, then you know that something is wrong, and you have to quickly move in and put in intervention. But if your interventions become strong and you are able to put in proper mechanisms, then the hospitalization will begin to reduce and level off, and the death rate will also begin to reduce and level off. So the death rate, the hospitalization rate are much critical in determining how well your interventions you are doing well with your interventions. And
so looking at the data, Doc, would you say that the curve is flattening? Would you agree with the Director General?
I will not be able to tell for now. I think that it is a bit too early for us to begin to make projections about whether we are flattening on. I think we need a lot of information, especially the rate of hospitalization due to COVID at all health facilities, at all pharmacies, people who are reporting, at all traditional healing centers, every place that people report to with infections, we need to know. We need to have good data on how many people are dying of this and who are being tested and knowing that they are COVID. When this data is put out there and we understand how this is moving, then I will be able to speak to it. For now, I think that it is a bit too early to talk. Let's see how this will play off. Maybe in a couple of 2 or 3 weeks, we can understand the graphs very well. For now, my joy is that the hospitals are not yet recording increasing cases. I mean, many people are not becoming critically ill and therefore are not trooping to the facility like we see in the case of Italy, in China, in the US, which is very encouraging for me. But when we begin to record these numbers trooping in, then we can tell whether indeed we are doing well or not. I think it's a bit too early. We just have to ensure that the precautions are much stronger than before and the adherence is much stronger, and we must be vigilant to ensure that we don't move to the level where the hospitals will be overstretched. That is what really is the critical point to look at. Once there is an overstretch, then the death rate will begin to occur. But when we put in the measures very well, we can spread this and delay this process to enable us to contain the few people who will to the hospital. So I think that we should be able to study this gradually, and then as things move on, we can see the picture come out clearly, and then we will know whether we are doing well or not.
Another update we got today was the recoveries. It's moved from 99 to 120. Is that good in the face of the lifting of the restrictions? Shouldn't we be expecting a lot more people recovering?
Well, I think that is good. Globally, the recovery rate, if you have to look at the world data, is between 25 to about 30 to 40%. What I have seen in the few data is that mostly when people are infected, within the first 7 to 10 days, about 30 to 40% of them recover. In the third week, another 60% cumulatively recover. And then by the fourth week, maybe about 28 days, you expect about 100% of them to recover. So the recovery is very slow. And remember that we have clinical recovery and then virological recovery. Most of them are fine. There is nothing wrong with them, but it takes some time for them to shed off the virus. So the virus shedding runs at a very slow pace. So I think that, yes, the numbers will increase, but this will not increase at a high rate. It moves in a gradual process. And as the weeks come by, a lot of them will be clearing the virus, and we will gradually get it. So it's a slow, and I'm not surprised that it's 120, but it will get better as we move on.
And finally, before you take leave of us, Doc, yesterday we were told by the Presidential Advisor on Health, Dr. Nsiasari, that the projection is that about 15,000 people will die from the virus. Today, there has been some clarification. He says this is just a hypothesis, looking at what the projections is by the World Health Organization. He's saying again today that we may not get there. I don't know what your reading of this is.
Well, I think that we need to have help or assistance from our mathematicians and our epidemiologists and biostatisticians. We need to begin to look at the model for Ghana. What is the model for Ghana? What is the reproductive number of the virus pertaining to Ghana, stratified by the region? And then we need to put in all the variables, the interventions we are making during lockdown and then during easing of lockdown. And when we put in these measures, we can make predictions that pertain to our country. I believe what he said was a hypothesis, but we can actually model this and have predictive variables put in place to make a projection. I think that the earlier we do that, the better, so that we can tell that in the next 2 or 3 weeks, these numbers are going to be infected and these numbers are going to have problems. The U.S. is doing that, the Italians have done that, the Chinese have done that. So I think that instead of relying more on hypothesis, let us engage the services of our modelers, mathematicians, and biostatisticians, and put together all the variables and begin to weigh the interventions against the number of deaths or infections that will occur, and have dates that will be accurate to tell that in 3 days' time, expect this number, in 6 days, that, and the model can work very well. Once we are able to put the model down, we can tell. So I will encourage that we should have our statisticians on board to get the model right so that we can rely on our own created model internally to tell us what will happen on a region-by-region basis as we put in our intervention.
Newsdesk this morning for bringing us that education and the clarification. We're very much grateful for your time here on Newsdesk. And there's some breaking news we have to bring you right now. There's fire. Fire has gutted an adjoining building here at the Multimedia Group at our premises. My colleague Matilda Omega is just right out of the studio and is standing by to bring us details. Matilda, what can you report?
Live from the Fanofa Street, close to the multimedia building, just adjacent the building, which is popularly known as the Blue Building. Fire has gutted some compound just around this privacy. So if you can see from the shots that the cameraman is giving to you, yes, if some people are even trapped in their buildings. As we speak now, there are 2 fire tenders trying to douse the fire here. But I must say that this building has not affected any of the multimedia buildings. It is just adjacent to the multimedia buildings. So we'll be engaging some of the residents. We are learning that the fire started around 11 a.m. So for 30 minutes, residents have been devising their own means to douse the fire. As you can see, there is still smoke coming out from the buildings. A lot of the residents here have been affected. A lot of them are out on the streets, including some staff of multimedia multimedia trying to protect themselves whilst we wait on the fire service to finalize everything. I'll be engaging some of the residents here, as particularly those who have been affected, to speak to them to get their understanding of what exactly triggered this fire, because the fire service came in like some 20 minutes ago and they have been trying so hard to douse the fire. We can see smoke from some of these buildings just around. There are lots of stores right in front of this building that has caught fire. So we'll be speaking to a lot of the shop owners whose shops have been affected, and then speak to some residents who have also been affected by this fire. Anti-Pearl, who time a journey started?
Me share them na me to say Joy FM. Into me pina me said Johnny there. Into Crawford more had no sunshine. I me make a chum so for omongus. Into me sunshine ye into a do or I'm trying me pay there. One guy be or say or buy grabber for her. And I'm so far wake and send best you. Let me sure you know for omongus and I found now only near Emma Johnny started.
Mean to me, me be do ya na ya start e shiwa enso de we ade omu dum no na e call what say na me to omu fa gallon ni mbra ha na omu fa omu so omu di nsuo na me to omu na ehia enti omu de omu ni ba enti omu di nsuo ni ko na be fa omu ni papa we guy we ni papa we enti ya na me ko peja nsuo na me di gu gallon no omu ahwe na omu di egusu
I have been speaking to a resident here. According to her, they don't know what exactly triggered this fire, but whilst in their room, they realized that smoke was coming out from one of the buildings from the compound, just adjacent the multimedia building. So they rushed out to douse the fire because none of the buildings around had fire extinguishers. So a lot of them had to improvise their own means of dousing the fire. So they came out to support before the fire service came in. I'll be speaking to more of these residents. As you can see, a number of them have come out in their numbers, including some staff of multimedia who are trying to protect themselves from the fire. A lot of them are out here on the streets hoping that the fire service will do a complete job for work to continue and then for residents to also move back into their homes. A number of the shops here, I can report, have not been affected yet, but because they are just at the front view of the building. If you can see from the shot, these are the shops right in front of the building which has scattered fire, and not far from that same building is a school building, and that I'm told has not been affected yet. So I'll be speaking with the human resource manager here at Multimedia to also give us some understanding. Raymond, you're live on JoyNews. Let me speak to you. How did the fire start? Did you get any understanding as to what triggered the fire?
Well, I was in my office about 2 buildings from where the fire occurred, but I've just spoken with one of my officers, and he tells me that I think they were standing right in front of our administration block, and a woman came from the adjacent block crying that the house was burning. So they asked her to stay calm and give them updates of what was basically happening. So what a piece from the story was that I think one of the rooms at the back of this building, that is where the fire started. And the woman, asked the children to move into the room when the rain started. Then as soon as they entered the room, they realized that the room has caught fire. So quickly they rush out. And as you know, when settings occur, state of confusion setting. Yeah. So she came out crying, and then that is where our officers saw that there's a need to react quickly. They got the fire service number, called them, and then they started the process of ensuring that we safeguard our property because we are very much adjacent to where the fire started.
So, Mr. Labi, you can confirm that none of multimedia buildings have been affected?
certainly none of our buildings have been affected. The one that was close to where the fire happened is our administration block. So our guys were on standby. We used all our extinguishers, and they've done a yeoman job, and they've ensured that our business is intact. We also ensured that it could not catch the other buildings that were in the block. So at the moment, the fire service people have ensured that the fire has been quenched, and I'm sure very soon the place will be restored to normalcy.
So thank you very much. But let me also find, has any staff of multimedia been affected by all this? I realize a number of them are on the street here.
Not at all. In terms of the building, no issue. In terms of the human resources, no issue, because all the managers were out and we were guiding our men who were getting water with soap, fire extinguishers to ensure that everything was safe. So we ensured that nobody got too close to the fire. So we ensured that all the safety measures were in place. So at the moment, we are safe. We are just outside, and I'm sure within a couple of minutes, we'll all get back to our desks to continue with our daily job.
Thank you so much, Mr. Labi. So you heard from Raymond Labi. Raymond Labi is a human resource manager here at Multimedia. Dispersed rumors that Multimedia building has been affected. None of Multimedia buildings have been affected by this fire. We'll be speaking with a number of these shop owners who business have come to a halt for them. A number of them are waiting on the fire service to ensure that everything is safe for them. You can see from the shot the fire tenders, 2 fire tenders on the streets of Fanofa trying to douse the fire. Let me speak with some business owners here. Good morning, Kwabna, do you know how the fire started?
There were shops in Muna, one lady named number 2. APA, the Johnny started one hono, one in Palani PS, Yambuan, and a Jaton ho. And you beside say Banisano say in Fioton or the Palana shed and about Nim near a Johnny started. That's all the Nimano.
Niamuniman Munim, and a Jan Munim said, a starting free a dema and I say, fear compound, will be here, Gianna. Then
to me, because there was shop Nimuyeni, a fear Nimu. I didn't start here no Mupia and say, you say, a Jabi Aso Fionomo. They to me, my information about it.
Okay, so he has just been explaining to us that he was in his shop when they got the alarm that one of the houses was on fire. So they tried to come out of their shops, trying to engage other people to support the residents in their rooms to come out for them to douse the fire. A number of them own shop just along this stretch, and I'm told it is the house that has been affected. We don't know whether it started from a room or from the main compound. We will go inside and then try and speak to some residents. We'll go inside and speak to some residents in there. So let's try and have a better view of the compound that caught the fire. So we are going in now to get some details, to get some understanding as to exactly how the fire started. So I have a number of residents here, including some fire officers here, to speak to have some understanding as to what exactly triggered the fire. You can see from the shots there, some rooms have been destroyed. A number of rooms have been destroyed on the premises. So let me first speak to some residents here and then understand how exactly it started. So you just came. So you don't live on this compound. So you also just came just like everyone. Let me speak to more of these residents here. You live not far from where the fire started. Do you have an idea how it all started?
No, I was asleep, so I didn't know how it started. Okay.
So you don't live on this premises?
No.
Okay. So she doesn't live in this premises. I would speak to some elderly persons here to find out from them how exactly this fire started. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. Can you please give us your name?
I'm Dakon.
Okay. So how did it start? Did you live on this campus?
Well, I'm around here, but I'm not in this house.
Sorry?
I'm not within the area.
Within the area. So do you have an idea how it all started?
Well, what I hear is started from this room, the small room.
The small room?
Yes. So where is the building? Yes, around it.
Do we have an idea who was in the room? Was it a kitchen or a bedroom?
It's a complete bedroom. plus kitchen. Fine. So maybe it could be cylinder or anything could happen. Yeah, cause the whole thing. Yeah.
Do we know whether the person was inside when the fire started or he's gone to work?
All the children are away. The woman was there, but she just escaped with the children. The woman was there, but she escaped with the children.
So she came out with her children. It was a woman in there.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, this is what I know.
Okay, so Ernest, we are learning that it was a woman and her children. They were in the room where the fire started. They were in the rooms when the fire started, so they had to escape and run for their lives to get some support from residents. In order to put out the fire. I have with me another resident here to speak to get some understanding as to how the fire started. Can you give me your name, sir?
Madam,
Ben. Yeah. So, Ben, how did the fire start?
Me boom. Can I say Jana started say APP. Until Jana started say APP, you share try say you be doom, you should crowd water hose, they try say be do ye be into na fire for no. In Tanchebia na fire for no so by no monso de or monso, who any bad or modibe count after the Amejano, doom. And can you one Kajano, as I say a crap on brass here. No more hand into a mabibia fine. You see a Jana say brass. Now, Namity say almost in a gas. Gas, almost a gas, or almost a cylinder. And I don't know your journey, and I said, I know the near.
We had to move out of the building because the fire service officers asked us to step out in order for them to complete their jobs, because it's not entirely safe in there for us to be in there to be doing our interview. So I was just speaking with this man who says, Bernard, who lives around this area, and he says that what they are learning is that the fire was triggered by a gas cylinder from one of the rooms on the compound. As you can see, a number of the shops down here have not been affected. It's a two-story, and all the shops here are intact, I'm told. None of them have been affected yet. When the fire service is done with their job, we will try to engage them as to what exactly they have possibly gathered from the short rounds that they have been doing here. So I'll continue with my engagement with this resident here to find out from him what exactly he knows. So into Mamina know what Dynamona is your Ejane started yen or emphasis here. Mamina
Ojane Babontin and she pay baby near the Kujina because on a Sunday Jane and a torn who do obey. Nti compare baby near man tonight. Now according to no say or yeah the aneka crab or honum and who say cylinder leak or tea and say boom. Into tea boom no dwane pia bontin or babe fresh and ko yen hwe ko se na wa ye no yen tumi anya wo hwe.
Mame no kwa no tea ana.
Mame no kwa no pie ba ye o de mirika pie ba ye ne enim de one ne te wo dem no kwa no de mirika e pie ba bontin ye pie baby man na ye de ne ko tena ye. Nti si an se na jane incident this see ye no ono no pie ba ye no I didn't go try be no be can say oh yeah aduane and now who say leakage be free cylinder no leakage na free cylinder no and not say pum and ntro dwane yen hwe rush ko no yen hwe ntumi anya wo hwe ye bo modi ayen bibia nsa na free fire for no and mo de car ne ba e no mo nso ma
ba so ejana anka obia
ejana anka obia na mmom omo dem nneoma mo bibia nneoma ahye gode.
So you heard from Ben over there. So Ben has just been narrating to me details of how he got information about this fire outbreak just along the Kokomlemle, just around the Kokomlemle, adjacent the multimedia building. So he's been telling us that the fire started from a room just adjacent the multimedia building, and what they gather is that it's a woman who was cooking in the kitchen. Then she had, so the explosion first occurred in the kitchen. So she ran out of the building, tried to get some help from residents in the neighborhood, and thankfully no one has been injured, no one has been hurt throughout this process. We'll be engaging more residents here. You can see a number of them are out here on the street trying to protect themselves, trying to stay safe in order for the fire service to complete a job. As we know now, the fire tender is still here, the fire officers are still here, trying their best to ensure that the place is completely safe for the residents to move back into their homes, for the shops to continue operating. So we'll continue to stay here to bring you all the details that you need to know as far as this fire is concerned. Earlier we spoke with the human resource manager of the multimedia, and he says that the fire has not affected any of the buildings here at Multimedia. None of the buildings here have been affected, and no staff has been injured. For now, he can say that everything is safe. We are only waiting for the fire service to complete a job for us to continue with our work, Ernest.
Matilda, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed with what is happening on our premises on the Fanofa Street. So if you're just tuning in, the story is that a building adjacent the multimedia office has been gutted by fire. As it stands now, no one has been injured. The multimedia group has not been affected in terms of property and the staff, and we're all doing well right now. The fire service is on the ground trying to douse the flame. You saw in the pictures there what exactly is happening. The suspicion is that this might have started from a cylinder explosion. Matilda is still on the ground. We'll bring you more in just a few minutes. Daniel Dazi is on standby with JoyNews today. Thank you for your time here on News Desk. There's more news at myjoyonline.com. Stay with us.